Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your patience as we get started here and getting everyone on the line. We've got a lot of registrants today, so we're excited to welcome you to our last webinar towards COP25. So it's on the horizon here, and we're going to get started now. So my name is Ariel Dukovic. I am Head of Communications here at ICLEI. You may not have heard my voice here on these webinars, but I'm very excited to join Eunice today, this morning, for today's webinar. And then this afternoon, we will also be joined by Jordan Harris from the incoming COP25 presidency. And just a couple of housekeeping notes here. As usual, these webinars will be uploaded to the YouTube channel afterwards and be available for on-demand viewing. Additionally, only one PowerPoint will be updated or uploaded rather. That will include Jordan's slides and sort of any updates that he has during the afternoon. So even though you're joining us this morning, you'll be able to hear what his perspective was through that. One final thing, we do have a kind of packed presentation today, so I encourage you to ask questions to hold to your questions till the end, but I will be, monitoring those questions and we'll definitely save time for that at the end. So definitely think through what you want to hear from Eunice as he's going through the agenda today, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. So with that, I will turn things over to Eunice.
Thanks, Ariel. It's a great pleasure to have your support in today's webinars, and I'm also very happy that you will be joining us in Madrid, especially leading our communication work with all the partners. Let me switch to my screen. As mentioned, yes, as Ariel mentioned, today is the last webinar of the year. This is the 11th webinar that we have been hosting monthly since the beginning of the year. Therefore, we thought it may be good to recap what we have done throughout the year. It's not realistic to go all of the details, but just some highlights. But this would give us the opportunity, I think, to also see what we should be expecting or what we will be presenting to COP in Madrid this time. We will spend some time on LGMA at COP25, the local governments and municipal authorities at COP25, in particular the delegations and events list, because it is very, very impressive in terms of the numbers. I will not go all the details, but I will have mainly a day-by-day analysis and also country by country. And the important thing is that we will also make all of these now information available at the citizenregions.org, which is the traditional landing zone for the engagement in the COP process for local government and municipal authorities. We would spend a couple of minutes also towards preparations for Glasgow, the COP26, knowing that the success of Madrid COP or Chile Madrid COP will help us to also be hopeful about a positive outcome from Glasgow, which will define the next next couple of decades. Just to recap, every year the climate conference of parties are led by parties. This is traditionally the party who is hosting, and this is defined by geographical turning that every continent has in turn. Last year it was in Europe, and it was held by Poland, and based on the Paris Agreement, we have now president of the COP, who takes care of all the negotiations, but we also have high-level action champions. In every year, the country who hosts the COP also is announced as incoming presidency, and they also define or appoint their president of the COP and high-level champions. And in that case, it is Chile, Minister of Environment Carolina Schmidt, and Gonzalo Munoz is the high-level champion. And every year in June, they come together to make the appropriate bridge between the implementation of the decisions from the previous COP and preparations for new agendas or new initiatives or new updates for the next COP. We have finished Katowice, with the strong message from Talanoa dialogues, cities and regions were very actively involved. This was incorporated into the Katowice outcome that the experience of Talanoa dialogue should be fed into the NDCs, that is to be expected to be revised and hopefully more ambitious. Therefore, during the year we had benefited from this momentum. As engaging of local and regional governments in the COP process, we have traditional mechanisms and we have annual priorities. In the case of 2019, we continue to showcase our data, and this year CDP ICLEI reporting platform, also the NASCA is important. We are having side events and summits usually in every COP, and we will go through that later on. We participate in the workshops. This year was also very intense, and we also contribute to the Marrakesh partnership process, and we contribute to the decision making, which means we share our input to the negotiation agendas. We communicate this with the Friends of Multi-Level Action or other national governments. They are the one who would incorporate our positions, if it is accepted, to the final decisions to be adopted or signed up. For this year, as we said, we have to increase the engagement of NDCs. This year was also particularly important with the ambition which is raised through the UN Climate Action Summit, and we had a number of announcements on climate neutrality and emergency. And this year's particular progress was on the finance, where there was a special forum on finance for cities, climate finance for cities, and numerous initiatives. Every year presidency has priorities. This year it was diverse, based on also the diversity of COP25 host Chile, and cities was one of the priority topics, and we are very grateful. Throughout the year we've mobilized, we have engaged very effectively with a dedicated team in the presidency. For those who can recall, we have throughout the year 3 main axes of engagement. We host our own summits and own events. We participate in UNFCCC related events, and we also participate in other UN processes. In particular, take into account that climate now is almost a cross-cutting to every initiative on sustainability at the UN. As I said here, I would like to come up with some highlights. This year in March, there was the UN Assembly, the 4th UN Environment Assembly in Nairobi, which had for the first time hosted a cities summit, and there was a fantastic mobilization to integrate and multi-level urban systems, which we will see the impacts in the design of the events in COP as well. This was the year where we had the first UN Habitat Assembly, which is also a milestone for UN Habitat and the urban community. After Habitat 3 now, UN Habitat is elevated to a new phase. UN Habitat Assembly, together with Environment Assembly, are the 2 assemblies outside New York, which are under the UN umbrella, and it is the only one hosted in the Global South. In this assembly, UN Habitat revised its strategy now. Urban development is very prominent, and climate, sustainability, resilience are also one of the core 4 pillars. And one additional interesting thing is that now for the next 4 years, UN Habitat Assembly will be chaired by Marta Delgado. She's currently the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, but Marta Delgado is well known for the urban community. She was the Environment Secretary of Mexico City and actively involved in ICLEI and many other networks. And in fact, Mexico City hosted immediately after the Copenhagen in 2010 the World Mayor Summit, which kicked off Mexico City carbon registry. And interestingly, Maimuna Sharif, which used to be spokesperson of UCLG, ICLEI, and Global Task Force on the way to Habitat 3, in her capacity as the mayor of Seberang Perai, is after all these years now appointed as the UN Habitat Executive Director, which is showing the interlinkages and different hats being onto the game, and especially urban leaders climbing the ladders in the global governance. But in UN Habitat Assembly, that was additional particular message that Prime Minister of Fiji, Frank Bainimarama, who kicked off the Talanoa dialogues, and this was the moment where we had made the connection between climate and urban agendas with the World Urban Forum, had spent 3 full days in Nairobi at the Urban Assembly or UN Habitat Assembly, which is a clear signal that climate community and urban community is getting much more closer. In Bonn, during the traditional June sessions, we hosted a unique spatial joint event on multi-level climate action with the COP25, COP24 presidency. This was for the first time the term multi-level action is enshrined in the official agendas and documents of the UNFCCC. The event was also a huge mobilization of different type of different representatives of parties. We had also a diversity of mayors and other city subnational leaders. There were different bodies of UNFCCC, and we had also additional stakeholders like NGO, climate, environmental groups, or indigenous people, or other stakeholders as well. This year, throughout the year, in particular with the European Parliament elections and also towards climate summit, climate emergency was one of the most interesting and most active process. As of today, the CASE website, the Council on Climate Action, announces that we are over 1,100 local and regional councils or senates adopting climate emergency declaration, which is a huge push to raise ambition. Throughout the year, there were regional climate weeks. This is taking place every year in Africa, Asia, Pacific, and Latin America and Caribbean. The one in Salvador, Brazil, was particularly unique because that was the first time a city was a co-host in terms of resources, political leadership. That is giving the example how cities and regions are taking more active role in the climate agenda. Throughout the year, there were numerous reports, scientific reports, and the UN Convention on Desertification hosted its 14th COP, which had the first local and regional governments day, and biodiversity agenda is started to evolve with the post-2020 New Deal for nature, where all of them have very close linkages with the climate space. Therefore, climate, land, nature is becoming a much more visible agenda. As we said, the event in Beirut in September was important. It is the first time climate negotiations focus on climate finance and cities, and the report is also impressive, and we would like to make sure the proposals are enshrined in the COP25 outcomes. Climate action was an important milestone throughout not just this year, but over the course of the years. Infrastructure, cities, and local action was one of the core, one of the 9 tracks, and we had numerous initiatives on finance, transport, resilience, and we had also a flagship report on climate, urban opportunity, climate emergency, which really set the scene in many discussions about the economic opportunities if national governments take on board the urban development as a priority and work with all levels of governments, that this can turn into financial and technological opportunities. Just yesterday, the Marrakesh Partnership, which is a mandate of the Paris Agreement for until 2020, has released its yearbook. But also this year it was unique. They have announced the climate action pathway. When we say they, of course, ICLEI and many of the partners of the LGMA are part of it, but it is a process driven by the champions and supported by the Secretariat. We encourage you to have a look at all these documents because this is really nice review, but also forward-looking towards 2020, 2030, 2050, which is tested for the first time. And in that regard, we commend and congratulate in particular all the thematic groups and the Secretariat and the champions, because on top of all these agendas, this was really a very heavy but very exciting and very, very valuable experience. Meanwhile, Chilean presidency is pushing the Ambition Alliance. They have just released another call and asking new initiatives either to come or connect to the ones that are already announced. We're expecting a number of initiatives will come, in particular from cities and regions. Therefore, we are looking forward to the final announcement, which will be held on the 11th of December. Now we are getting closer to the agenda of COP25. Let's recall from this COP, we are expecting a COP decision that gives a mandate or that gives recommendation to national governments to bring their NDCs in engaging with all levels of government, so that this has to be much more clear. The decision from Katowice was saying that Talanoa experience is good, but now we should have a text which says NDC, second NDCs should be much more actively developed with local and regional governments as well. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, market and non-market mechanisms. We know several local and regional jurisdictions are running their own cap and trade systems, like Tokyo, Quebec, California. We are also participating very heavily as the host of CDM projects or NAMAs, and the new climate neutrality targets are also hoping to boost the climate market in terms of the credits, and new investments can come to the developing countries. In terms of non-market mechanisms, the urban development could be positioned as a non-market mechanism because it introduces a lock-in effect that we can prevent heavy carbon investments, or we can introduce low carbon transformation. Finance decision, we're hoping that there will be some significant outcomes. Climate Action Summit, it's good that it is all incorporated into NASCA and then the Global Climate Action Agenda, but it should be also additionally welcomed, we hope. And of course, this relates to the future of the global climate action, that from Chile, we should give signal that by the end of the negotiations in Glasgow, Climate Action Summit or Climate Action Agenda is not only until 2020, but also throughout the rest of the climate process. And also, we also have a discussion on the Action for Climate Empowerment, which has a specific role for cities in terms of education, training, and awareness. With this agenda, we are coming to Chile with more than 100 mayors and subnational leaders from around 40 countries, representing around 70 cities and regions, mobilized by efforts of more than 20 networks and partners engaged in the LGMA constituency. As a bird's eye view, we will have for 2 weeks traditional interventions, especially in the beginning and at the end. We will have side events, obviously, but we will also have climate action studio interviews. We are still checking, because due to the shift from Santiago to Madrid, there may be changes, and we are hearing that at the on the first day, there may be a heads of state level engagement, and there may be some rooms for local and regional leaders, but this has to be further clarified. We know it's just 2 days left, but this is an extraordinary COP. We are all saying that this is an unstoppable COP, so expect any last minute announcements, hopefully positive, soon. 6th of December is a transport day. It is important. It was originally a transport ministerial, but it is now important, transformed into a transport day. This is also having a huge discussions on urban transport. Marrakesh partnership events are thematic events, will be held on towards the second half of the first week. On the 7th of December, we will have a Paris Committee on Capacity Building specific session on local governments and cities. Hopefully on Sunday, we are still hopeful that City of Madrid may host a welcome reception for LGMA. 9th of December is the peak day. It is in the COP25 territory, more or less the multi-level action day. There will be numerous side events at all pavilions, and the UNFCCC official agenda, Room 5 is reserved for LGMA partners. We have GCOM Day, and in the end, we will have a special limited by invitation only a dinner brought by LESC, led by ICLEI and WBCSD and SDSN, and GCOM will also have the full day at the EU Pavilion. On the 10th, we will have additional, on the 9th, as part of COP25 multi-level action day, in particular, we will hear regional roadmaps from Latin America and Caribbean under the COP25 presidency. You will see how promising we have Latin America and Caribbean presence in Madrid. On the 10th, a number of events continues, but there will be at 6:15 at the Chile Pavilion a roadmap to Glasgow. This has been discussed with a number of partners of the LGMA and the presidency. We are hoping that we will live this COP with a strong and solid strategy towards Glasgow, knowing that the last 2 days of this COP25 will be particularly interesting, because we will see the result of the election in the UK, which will impact certainly the preparations as the host country, but also COP25 outcomes will be held on the Friday. But from 10th onwards, we will have our vision very clear. Several ministerials are taking place on 10 and 11. We hope to see some subnationals being present there. And on the 11th of December, it will be Climate Action Day. All the announcements of ambition and other alliances will come to the scene. with this, I'm just going now through the list of political leaders. This is list by country, according to alphabetical order. The good news is that we have every continent represented. We have Australia represented by councillors. We have Argentina, Benin, Belgium. This is a special page for Brazil. It is literally impressive. Obviously, this is not final list. There may be some last-minute travel changes and accreditation issues, but demonstration of engagement of Brazilian local and regional leaders is hugely important. And one very unique information is that almost all Brazilian political leaders are accredited through the Brazilian national delegation. So that is also a unique example. This is not traditionally surprising because since 2010, almost 2009, Brazilian delegation was always with the highest or one of the high level of local and regional leaders in the national delegation. But we know during the years in the past there were some differences in the way of the approach of the federal government and the local and regional government in the Brazilian domestic issues. So but I think this is a very nice reflection from all leaders and all levels of government in Brazil that they are coming as a national delegation. We have delegations from Quebec in particular. Chile, we are checking, but we have confirmed Independencia, and we're checking with the Association of Mayors. As you see, Colombia, Costa Rica, Ecuador, they are all almost confirmed 100%. This is also very nice. For us, a signal that Latin America in its diversity is also represented, including Caribbean countries as well. Committee of the Regions always is actively involved. Finland, the presidency of the EU this year, will be represented by the mayor of Turku, actively involved in the circular economy and climate neutrality processes. France will be represented by a number of regional governments and associations as well. And islands. Germany will have Dortmund, Bonn, Berlin at mayor or secretary of environment level, and North Rhine-Westphalia and Baden-Württemberg and Essen as well. Honduras capital Tegucigalpa mayor is coming. Italy has regional and ministerial representation. Mexico is very strong with different levels of participation. I think that is also again a good signal. We have representatives from Morocco, who is actively involved in the numerous networks, but in particular, the new president of UCLG, Mohamed Boudra, is also planned to be with us. Obviously, Spain, we would expect a huge delegation. Panama is confirmed to be confirmed. Trinidad Tobago, I think this is very important, and in that sense, we should acknowledge the financial contributions from the GCOM, EU mission to Chile, Euroclima, and a number of other partners, ICLEI's project resources like Urban LEDs and Urban Transition Alliance, additional funding from numerous partners in Latin America have managed to bring us on forward to this delegation, including in the last couple of days, we are receiving support from airline companies to help transport of delegations. And we have also from UK councillor, and we just heard mayor of Glasgow is coming on the first week. We have the cabinet secretary of Scotland and Pittsburgh mayor from the US. This is we're getting closer to our end of my presentation, and I thank you for your patience as well. We try to split it, let's say, section by section. The first 2 or 3 days are relatively, let's say, not as active as we are expecting throughout the rest of the days, but we still have a number of events like a debate on CDM in cities, a presidency dialogue, open dialogue, we said high-level segment, interventions, especially pavilions, WWF, IDB, and EU pavilion. 5th of December is the time when we are starting to feel the heat that events of the LGMA are becoming more visible, especially in the pavilions. And then 6th of December is very active on especially Transport Day. As you said, here you see only one entry, which is Transport Day, but within this day, there is already a number of sessions. So we are talking about around 100 overall throughout the whole week, 2 weeks that of our mobilization. this 6th of December is also opportunities for Marrakesh partnership events, numerous thematic events. 7th of December, you can definitely see how dense, especially with Marrakesh partnership, the most, let's say, sister themes like energy, transport, human settlements, as well as EU pavilion and the CP pavilion on climate, on biodiversity, um, as well as finance and other thematic events. And we're expecting to have a Spanish and Latin American mayors event at the end of the day by the COP25 presidency on the 8th of December, which is Sunday, which is the blue zone is closed. We are expecting there will be several side events outside or inside the city of Madrid, and we will look forward to a confirmation from the city of Madrid for a reception. As you can see, 9th of December is the peak. We even have to shrink this font size. The room 5 of the UNFCCC is reserved for side events of ICLEI, CDP, regions for UN Habitat and the Climate Registry, the lead members of the local governments and municipal authorities constituency. EU Day is on that day. India, NDCP Pavilion, German Pavilion, are particularly the events that are very actively hosting urban or local and regional related events. We are seeing that there will be a number of roundtables on water, life below water or life on land, and then outside inside the city of Madrid, we will have the LESC Low Emission Solutions Conference at the Autonomous University of Madrid. The Chilean associations and the presidency will have their own summits, and with a limited invitation due to lack of space, we will conclude the day with a dinner at with LESC engagement. On the 10th, more or less similar intents. In particular, Marrakesh Partnership Circular Economy on Cities and Buildings. It's a flagship event. High-level event again on action empowerment, resilience dialogue, and resilience roundtable will be very core. We will have a number of events in Japan and Korea and China and Chile pavilions, and of course, especially Chile pavilion. The last event would be very important for our roadmap. 11 to 13, we said the momentum is relatively decreasing, but these are the moments where there will be additional high-level engagements, in particular with the presentation of the Marrakesh partnership agendas, and the high-level event on Ambition Alliance will be the key for the moment for this couple of days. With this, I'm concluding my presentation. Once again, I thank you a lot, and Ariel, I'm sure you can help us to now interact with our partners, your participants of today.
Great, thanks so much. If you have, feel free to send them through on the question panel, or you can go ahead and I think raise your hand. So raise your hand, I'll be free to do that, and we'll take questions now. Okay, we've got one from Ava. Ava, if you're ready, otherwise you can send your question in through the panel. So there's Ava.
Can you hear me? No?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I didn't understand from Yunus whether there would be a declaration from the local perspective, which would come out of all the LGMA constituency days, or just the GCOM day. I haven't understood that well because I missed the first introduction from Yunus, sorry. And good morning, everyone. Sorry.
Hi, Eva. I don't know what will be the final format, but on the 10th of December, when we leave the Chilean Pavilion event, we hope to have a sort of our roadmap, the basic elements, and the key milestones to be defined, so that our delegations who are starting to go back home from Madrid that they should be aware of what we will be working for throughout the year. If you can recall, this morning I circulated another LGMA update. Our proposal is to have very specific and focused 5 or 6 or maximum 10 priority themes. We have listed, actually, I noticed that I forgot that last slide. There was supposed to be that text inserted into this presentation, but what I can summarize here, and I will update in the second part of the presentation. This is in that screen, you see this basic event, the global ones, that we can see the tracking of how we can mobilize ourselves. But in terms of the 5 action points or 5 priority themes, what we are saying is that first we have to raise ambition. Second, we have to verticalize or make sure NDCs are vertical integrated and that they are clearly committed or presented at COP. More national governments showing this. Third, we have to have finance mechanisms much more operated. We had Lucy, we had Gap Fund, we had R20 Fund, even if so many funds. The Green Climate Fund is adopting its strategy, urban strategy, so that these should be operated and more money should come and flow to us. Fourth is connect climate debate to nature and circular economy. This year will be the Nature Summit. And the fifth is to expand the climate action in the sense that, yes, it is important that we have ministers of transport, finance, energy. These are the, let's say, heavy carbon intensive ministers. But there is a group of ministers, there's a group of community like ministers of infrastructure, urbanization, public works, or in many cases, ministers of education, ministers of culture, arts, youth. These are the also government bodies, and these are particularly the ones that they are feeling that changes in the society are visible and transformation is possible, that these ministers should be also part of the debate during the year at home, but also at the pre-COP in Milan and the COP in Glasgow. And we are particularly excited because Italy was the first country to announce a curriculum in the coming years on climate in the education curriculum. They are the champions of the education training awareness. Italy is one of those countries who have that has the highest number of entries in the Covenant of Mayors. Glasgow, Scotland is well recognized with their cultural and historical diversity. There are a number of networks like Climate Heritage Network and others that are working on all these agendas. So this is the year we will have Earth Day, Pastoral Day, that all these mobilizations should be very visible during the national preparations, but also in particular at the pre-COP and COP. So that is the element that we'll be discussing until 10th. And as I said, the text is circulated to the LGMA update, and we are looking forward to additional inputs. We can shortly turn it into a Google Doc that everybody can put their inputs so that then we can come up with a solid, clear the strategy towards Glasgow.
Okay, many thanks, Yunus. Very clear.
Great, thanks for that. We have Eunice from Ole. Where and when will LGMA briefs happen?
Ola, this is an excellent question because you made it so. My latest update came a couple of hours before. Indeed, this was in my list, but I just skipped it. By mistake, I forgot to include it. This just came yesterday. That it's a very good signal. First of all, we didn't want to occupy the full 2 weeks because we're already aware that our delegation is not throughout the 2 weeks there. So we try to save the space for other constituencies, but for between 6th and 11th, LGMA daily meetings will be held at the Climate Action Hub of the Marrakesh Partnership. From those who have been familiar in Katowice, this was an auditorium style. It is an open space, and Secretariat has kindly invited us to consider whether we can use it. The cost is that it's not a completely closed space, but I think it also reflects that our delegation is easy to meet, and it's one of the best convenient places, points. I will include this in my final update of today with this presentation as well. So Climate Action Hub, 9 to 10, between 6 to 11th of December, LGMA daily briefings will be held.
Thank you. Sorry, just updating some folks here. We had one, just a reminder from Sophie Comic that when CDF Locale will share 3 side events with ICLEI on the 4th and 5th of December for participation and dissemination. It's just a for folks to participate in that, and we'll be sure to include that information on the various be updated at let's see, and if I'm pronouncing, Faye had some comments, and I can either read them out loud, Antoine, or I can up the line for you. So first off, it was just an observation that there were only folks, delegates from Africa confirmed, and whether there was a reason, Eunice, if you why that is.
You mean, Antoine, that there were few, and is this the reason, or I didn't understand the question exactly?
Is I noticed that confirmations from Africa. Why is that?
Confirmation of what?
From the delegates rather.
Well, I mean, what we are seeing is that in many national delegations of Africa, there may be local and regional leaders that may not have been communicated to us so far. Antoine, if you are aware, feel free to update us. But what we know for the moment, I now understand that there is very little from Africa as local and regional leaders. Okay, now I see. We have Morocco and only Benin. Yes, that is, I mean, I don't have an answer to that. What I know, because of the change from Santiago to Madrid, many partners try to favor their financial resources to the Latin American representatives so that they still feel at home. But for the local leaders, as I said, in most cases, Africans are coming through their national delegations. Maybe, as I said, this is not final list. There may be more names that we are not aware. Anyone who knows this, please insert into the shared document so that we keep it updated.
Ava would also like to point out that there's a confirmed representative from Dakar. And that.
Eva, please insert it into the file. Ariel?
So I think, one thing, things, will it be in the blue zone or an open zone?
Yes, I think as far as I know, everywhere will be blue zone here in Madrid. Not here, there. I'm still in Bonn. So except events like LESC at the Autonomous University of Madrid, or some hotels, most events are in the blue zone. That's why we indicated the venue, including the LGMA briefings.
I have another comment from Antoine, which again, from now, he says, I'm glad Eunice mentioned the SDS forum in Beirut that will have to make the session workshop in order to monitor if it will follow up with guidelines to the different financial mechanisms to consider the needs for cities, or the need of cities to finance their climate change activities.
Okay, Antoine, first of all, Antoine Faye is from Senegal. He was the chief resilience officer of Dakar for a long time, and we're very happy that he's still engaged in the national delegation. And Antoine was also in Beirut with us. It's always a pleasure to have Antoine's contributions. We were trying to hear from the Standing Committee on Finance their agenda to share the outcome of the forum. I think there is a side event on the 7th that is announced. I'm not sure this is the in-session workshop that you refer to, Antoine, but any information that comes that reaches to you, feel free to share with us. Definitely, we want to have this finance agenda because so many things have happened this year. This was the year of finance in many senses. Not that we see this money coming to us, but for a long time we were asking ourselves to be heard, but so many processes now really push this idea with the climate summit as, once again, to recap, the LUCI and the GAP Fund, the funds from UNDC Capital Development Fund, UCLG, R20, Transformative Actions Program, C40 Finance Facility, the Urban Opportunity Report. They are all talking about money, and it is just showing that, let's remember, we are in the year where European Investment Bank announced that they will not anymore fund fossil fuel investments, which is also giving us the confidence that this money that they have will have to be spent somewhere. And we know EBRD, for example, is one of the champions with the GCOM initiatives as well. And we also know that there are a lot of opportunities our members are developing. So the more we have events and engagement on the finance, the better we can show our strength, and we can be confident for next year in the NDC process. So please, Esther is the focal point for the LGMA towards the SCF. She was chasing them to have clarity. Please feed her so that we can convey any updates. As we said, this list is as of today. It can always be updated, and there will be better updates, I think, online that we have to track, and we have to stay tuned.
Hi, Eunice. I don't see any additional questions, and so far as I have additional hands up. Again, if you have questions, send them along. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Is someone else contributing, Ariel?
Any additional questions?
I hear something.
Background noise from me. Sorry about that.
Well, I see Jordan, by the way. Jordan, are you really online? Well, I assume you're still in Santiago. It should have been very, very early for you, but I mean, we still have 10 more minutes, and if Jordan, you don't have to deliver your presentation now because I think you're still working on it, but if you want to address audience here with these colleagues now, we can definitely unmute you, but we would reserve your main interventions in the afternoon session. But thanks a lot for your really availability, if you are really Jordan Harris there, the email I see.
Eunice, would you like me to unmute him?
Yeah, let's try. I hope he can speak. Maybe he's somewhere in the home with the family and not to wake up the kids or the rest of the family.
Jordan, we're just going to unmute.
Hello, yes, it is me. Hello, everyone.
Welcome and good morning, Jordan.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, good afternoon to you.
Don't feel a pressure, but at the moment I saw your name, I thought it may be good. Our colleagues may not be able to join in the afternoon, so let's use this opportunity. As I said, don't stress yourself for a well-prepared intervention, but if you want to say anything, any message, that is really a great opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, just very briefly highlight the what I'll talk about in the afternoon is kind of the regional effort that's happening in Latin America to be brought to bear on the global roadmap event that we've also been organizing together with LGMA constituency, with a lot of help from Eunice on that end. So in both Chile and Latin America, we're developing several efforts to try and consolidate the work that's being done by the different local government networks that are active and leading climate change work on a local scale in Latin America. So we'll have several events that kind of speak to those efforts. Most importantly, on the 9th of December, in the morning in the Euroclima Pavilion, we'll be presenting a regional kind of action agenda that's been developed between several partners, including ICLEI, GCOM, the FLACMA, which is the kind of CGLU Latin American continental arm, Mercosciudades, CC35, among others. And just very briefly also mention, I heard Eunice speaking about the blue zone, green zone. There will be, and this is a green zone that's been confirmed in the IFEMA, so it will be in the same venue, but it will be where it will be possible for non-accredited people to participate in a number of events. This is dynamic news. They've just actually yesterday and today they're confirming different events that are being transferred, for example, from the original green zone that had been planned in Santiago de Chile, seeing how many of those can be transferred over to the green zone that will take place in Madrid. And of course, there will also be other green zone events that are being organized more directly by the Spanish partners that are now taking the lead on organizing that green zone space. But so just so that people are aware that there will be a green zone space, which is available for meetings, and there will also be another set of events that are taking place there. We were able kind of last minute to get an event in the green zone that's somewhat of a repetition of another event that was mentioned by Eunice in the blue zone, of a dialogue between Latin American mayors and Spanish mayors that will be participating during the COP. But we're just very much so looking forward to being able to present the roadmap that we've been putting together. Looking forward to also having a dialogue with the incoming COP26 presidency from the UK in order to establish the landmarks that we'll be going through during 2020, which is a key year for kicking off implementation of the Paris Agreement. So, well, I'll leave it there for now, and in the afternoon go into a little bit more detail. But thanks for the opportunity to put a word in, Eunice.
Jordan, this is excellent. I would like to also address that on behalf of LGMA constituency, we are grateful for Jordan's presence and the COP25 presidency offering Jordan this opportunity to interact with us. He is working with a number of delegations, with a team there. Over these years, especially starting from Copenhagen onwards, 2010 or 2009, every COP presidency had really good understanding of the importance of our constituency. Almost all the COP hosts were part of the Friends of Cities and now Friends of Multi-Level Action. In each of them, they had provided very valuable feedbacks and leveraged our profile. But the Chilean presidency is particularly assigning a team, and especially in a difficult year, we all know how challenging it was. I think it is really valuable, and that they are already had so many consultations beforehand at the regional level and will continue the next year. This is also very important. As we said, we are aware the 13th of December and 11th of December will be particularly different for the climate and the world's community because of the two things: the result of the COP25 outcomes and the Brexit elections in the UK. And COP25 president, whatever happens, will continue to lead the outcome, the implementation of the COP25 presidency. Having a dedicated team, having a vision, having such a recognition, I think this is very valuable, so that in the year we can continue to have the support of the presidencies, just like we had from Polish, Morocco, French, the German host, the Fijians. So we are very hopeful, and we're very happy to have this very strong support of all the presidencies. And I think Chile is taking it to a next level. Jordan, maybe let us free you so that you have some more sleep, so that you can come back with much more fresh minds in the afternoon. Any questions to direct to Jordan, so we can still have 2 or 3 minutes if needed? I think no. Ariel, do you see anything?
I do not see any other hands, no.
Okay, I think we've done. Ariel, what do you think? We've covered. As I said, there are some notes that was missing in this presentation, especially the LGMA daily briefings, as well as this road towards Glasgow. This 5 priorities I will insert it in the next presentation in the afternoon, but it was already communicated to the LGMA mailing this morning. So yeah, thanks, Ariel, from my side.
Thanks everyone for joining us today.